as internal communicators, building up our cultural intelligence in multi-global organisations is going to be key to thinking about how tone and language and words resonate across all those different audiences.
Welkom bij Take10, een videoreeks van Vonk, waarin een expert je in 10 minuten uitlegt hoe je als interne communicator meer impact kan hebben.
Jennifer, welcome. Together with Katja Werbroek, you presented at the Vonk conference the results of the Moodmeter and the IOIC report, which tell us a lot about the state of internal communication. Which striking insights from both studies stand out most to you?
I think when looking at both studies, the things that really stand out to me is there's two areas actually that are really aligned in both areas, that employees are looking for greater relevance. So that means I want you to talk to me, understand my needs, understand that I don't feel understood, and reflect back to me something that's going to present information that I can do something with. So for example, in the Moodmeter and both the IOIC Index, what it's saying is that actually employees don't understand the strategy and they don't understand what their role is to contribute to the strategy. So they want to find that point of relevance. I think the other point as well is around clarity. They want that sense of clarity. I'm really not sure I understand what you're telling me, what that shared meaning is. So I think when I look at both reports, there's the piece around the relevance, the piece around clarity, and then on the IOIC Index side, it's also that piece around empathy and that piece around connection, and also the importance of leadership communication in those areas.
Okay, clear. How do Belgian internal communicators differ from internal colleagues?
I don't think they differ a huge amount, actually. I mean, I've really enjoyed being here to understand what it's like in Belgium, and obviously I understand greater detail what it's like in the UK. And I look at the challenges that I'm hearing, and they're very aligned, particularly leaders. How do we get leaders to become good, empathetic communicators? How can we coach them? How can we make them more visible? How do we deal with direct managers who are so trusted, and how can we give them the skills and the tools? How do we help deal with remote workers and deskless workers? How do we reach them? How do we look at the impact of AI? So there may be, I think, some nuanced cultural differences from Belgian companies perhaps, but to UK companies, but by and large we're working in multinational, multicultural organisations. So you have to play those nuances together, but when I look at the challenges of the profession are facing, they are very aligned across both Belgium and the UK.
These cultural differences, what are they exactly?
I think it's just that what I'm hearing is sort of, well, there's a lot of languages and there's a lot of different tone and messaging that might resonate in one culture and the way we speak and behave and create those relationships versus another UK company. So I think that those cultural differences are around just the context of norms and behaviours and those values. But often we're working in multinational organisations, so how do we align that intercultural space? How do we find the pieces that join? So I think that those are probably some differences maybe, but as internal communicators, building up our cultural intelligence in multi-global organisations is going to be key to thinking about how tone and language and words resonate across all those different audiences.
Okay. What do you see as the biggest area of improvement for internal communication?
I think the biggest area I see, which comes true in terms of the index as well, and what I'm hearing as well from the sessions I've been to, is that I think the biggest area of improvement is that employees want to feel part of something. They want to feel involved, they want to feel heard, and they want to feel their needs reflected back to them. So I think one of the challenges for internal communicators is how do we build a sense of dialogue, conversation, and that multi-directional flow of communication. So how do we design listening programs? How do we listen to then reflect back as opposed to speak to inform? And I think that the challenge for internal communicators, when we're so overwhelmed with volume of things that particularly stakeholders want to send or they think is super important, that must go, that we're so busy sending, we're not doing enough listening to build them into the program of communication to then enhance that feedback loop. And I think if we can bring listening and feedback as part of the everyday of our communication strategies, that will tackle the challenges employees have around feeling connected, involved, empathetic, understood, informed, which will then in fact inform their motivation, their performance, and their ability to understand and create that shared meaning.
Okay. So how can organizations translate these insights into practice?
I think the thing is there's so much to look at in the world of communication and what we're doing and understanding how we're driving that to meet the goals and the shared performance that we're looking for. So for me, I think it's about taking the index data, taking the Moodmeter data, taking that to really delve in and listen and build really strong data sets to understand where are the gaps, where are the challenges, what are the things that need solving. Because in the round, we know that employees don't feel connected in leadership communication. So if that is really true in your organisation, through whether that's qualitative work, whether that's survey work, whether that's just sitting, listening and observing and being present in our organisations, to take that information back to our stakeholders, our leaders, to really look at how we can make those improvements and how we can focus in on the things that need to be focused in on. Because I think we're so overwhelmed with doing that we need to take the time to listen to make sure we're doing the right things. So for me, I will be taking away some of those things that you see in all the reports, all the research and all the sessions, and then going into your organisation, doing some research, doing some listening, talking to colleagues, talking to stakeholders to find out where the gaps of alignment or misalignment are so that you can really focus in on solving those priorities.
Okay. Could you maybe give us an example of a company that does this really well?
Yes, so let me give an example of a company in the UK. It was a guest I actually had on one of my podcasts, and they were a bus company, huge bus company, and so obviously bus drivers, whatever, and they had a huge retention problem. They were leaving. And what they did was they implemented listening programs. So they went out with HR and the leadership team and the internal comms team on a quarterly basis. They would go into all the sites and they would just do listening sessions. So how's it for you? What's going on? What's your frustrations? What would you like to see differently? And what they gathered from that was actually the problem was the shift patterns. The shifts weren't working. And the way they structured it and the way they did things, and it was costing them £7,000 to recruit a bus driver. So what they did was by listening, they understood they needed to change the way things were done and the way they looked at shifts and working. That massively increased them feeling heard, adjusted to what they need, and then suddenly their retention problem was turned around. So that's what I mean, and as an example is by being present and visible and listening and then acting on that feedback, you might find actually the problem in the organisation is more simpler to fix than you think by taking the time to listen. Does that sound like a good example?
Yes, very well. Okay, thank you. I think our time is up. Inspiring to see how research can truly provide tools for our practice.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.